Welcome to our show where we shine a light on the remarkable achievements of today's leading filmmakers. I am your host, Antonio Sayant, and today we have the privilege of sitting down with an extraordinary director who is making waves with his latest documentary. Joining us is Trip Jennings, the visionary behind the critically acclaimed film Elemental Reimagine Wildfire. This captivating documentary takes us on a journey to a better understanding the challenges of wildfires and offers innovative solutions to keep our homes and communities safe. With extensive expertise in fire and insurance disaster response, Trip Jennings, along with the producer Ralph Blomers, brings a wealth of knowledge to the table. Their film has garnered worldwide attention, being selected for over 30 film festivals and winning numerous awards. Get ready to delve into the world of Elemental Reimagine Wildfire as we explore the fascinating work of Trip Jennings. The film is narrated by the famous British actor, director, and producer David Oyelowo. At the end of the interview, check out a clip which he says a few words about the film that he narrated. Without further ado, here's the interview with Trip Jennings. Elemental Reimagine Wildfire sheds light on the challenges posed by wildfires and explores solutions to ensure the safety of our communities. Can you tell us what inspired you to embark on this journey and create such a thought-provoking documentary?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, fire inspired this, right? There was a pretty big fire for the time and for the area just outside of Portland, where I live, 40 miles east of Portland, and the wind was blowing straight towards Portland. And it was the first time in generations that I think there were ashes falling on people's houses in Portland. And that was a forest fire that really was not a problem in many ways, right? It was a good fire. It was in an area that hadn't burned in a long time, an ecosystem that's dependent on fire, and no structure is really burned down. One sort of old shed was the only casualty, and so that really got me thinking about, like, okay, the way we talk about fire so often is like fire destroyed 40,000 acres, but in this case it hadn't destroyed it at all. It was a positive thing for the ecosystem.
Right.
And so I felt like there was this disconnect between the best available science and the public conversation that was happening, because people were really freaking out about that.
Right.
And then, of course, the campfire happened in Paradise, California, burned the whole town down. And it just totally changed the way people talked about and thought about fire, because all of a sudden we realized how devastating one fire could be. 19,000 structures, 86 people dead. And the narrative and the conversation became, how do we prevent this from ever happening again? And that's when I really started to see, oh my gosh, we know the solutions. We have the science. The
Yeah.
people have done the research, and we're not doing it. We've
Yeah.
got to do something to get this message out there.
Yeah. The film takes viewers on harrowing escape from Paradise, California, like you said, and it dives into record-breaking fires. Could you share some of the most impactful moments that you captured during the making of the documentary?
Well, I mean, the quote that sticks with me, and honestly, like, I have seen this film. Like, I made it. I've seen it more than 100 times. And there's just this quote from a mother who was escaping from Paradise in her car, stuck in traffic. And she says, oh my gosh, people's tires are popping around us. You can hear tires exploding because of the heat. And you just imagine they're just driving on, this metal rim of a tire in this burning forest. And she says, I was reaching back in the back seat to touch my children because I didn't think I would ever get to touch them again. And I cry I've watched the movie so many times, and when I hear that line, it just brings tears to my eyes because it is so unimaginable how awful that situation is. And I mean, sitting in her yard that had burned down, her house that had burned down, and filming that interview, I mean, you could just feel how terrifying. You could feel the terror. And like I said, that's why we wanted to make this film. But
Right.
that should never happen again.
Yeah, I definitely felt that when I saw that part too. I was nervous because I didn't know what was going to happen.
And
Uh,
that's all real footage. I mean, that is footage that she filmed on her way out of paradise.
yeah, which is priceless.
Yeah, we didn't know.
Yeah, the film features a lot of interviews, especially with top experts, and especially you had the indigenous prescribed firelighters and the fire survivors. How did these diverse perspectives contribute to all of the overall message of the film? And what were some of the insights that you gained from these interviews yourself?
Yeah. Well, so I was invited to spend time with the Iraq firelighters, as you said, right? The Cultural Fire Management Council. And that was a real eye-opening moment for me. I had never been, that was the first fire I was ever on, right? It was when it was an intentional fire that was being lit. And the thing that really hit me about the Yurok, they are a tribe that's never been displaced from their traditional homeland. That is rare, maybe unique in the United States, right? I mean, they were the last to be colonized, and they have such deep knowledge of that place and that land. And even with all of that, the thing that I really learned is just that fire is a part of every ecosystem, and it's not something, it's like a hurricane, it's like a tornado. We don't have hurricane fighters. We don't assume that someone else will put out the hurricane, right? It's a reality. The ones that escape initial attack from firefighters will become, fires we have to deal with. And that's what really sunk in for me, is like, oh, this is something that the Yurok have lived with and understood, will be part of their lives since time immemorial, long before we were here. And so combining that deep knowledge, also how to use fire as a tool,
Right.
combining that deep knowledge with the new science of how to protect homes and communities, and the boots on the ground experience of firefighters. That's kind of that that's that tripod, right? Of knowledge that we try to bring to viewers. This old, deep rooted knowledge with new, how do we react to this situation that we're currently in? And then with firefighters, here's how it works on the ground. Like, that's what we bring to viewers. And I think that's I think you can get a little too distracted by sort of techno gadgetry if you just look at the science or the firefighting, or you can get a little stuck in sort of things that were learned in a climate that doesn't exist if you only look at the past, right?
Right.
But finding all of these, I think that's how we get out of this situation alive.
Yeah. One of the film's objectives is to challenge conventional wisdom and superficial talking points. Can you elaborate on how your film offers a fresh perspective and presents a revealing historical view of our relationship with fire?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so many of our assumptions and stories that we tell around fire and how to deal with it,
Right.
we created over the last 100, 150, 200 years. And we are now in a climate that is completely different from that, right? We developed our assumptions in a climate that no longer exists, right? So we do have to challenge, we came at it with this problem by saying, well, what's different? And that's clearly one of the most important things, right? And so the assumption that we can have firefighters take care of the problem and we don't have to deal with it, that assumption, I think we can all agree at this point, is out the window, right? even if it's still a pervasive belief. And firefighters are heroes, and they work so hard, and they stop the overwhelming majority of fires. But the ones that escape, they aren't going to be able to help us with, right? In extreme fire weather. And so that's one assumption that we have to get rid of, right? Um, the other assumption is that the problem is in the forest, right? We call it forest fire.
Right.
But the majority of homes that burn in wildfires in the United States are not in forests. They're
Yeah.
in grasslands or chaparral, right? 80% of homes that burn in California, not in forests, right? So this assumption that the problem can be taken care of by addressing and managing and changing, manipulating the forest, it just doesn't work, right? It's not bearing out. We've spent
Yeah.
hundreds of millions of dollars a year trying to manage the forest by thinning and creating fire breaks, that kind of thing. And at the same time, we've seen a 10,000% increase in homes destroyed.
Yeah.
That's a failing grade. We can't do that, right? So that's an assumption we have to throw out. And so what this film asks people to do, and look, most climate films, for good reason, are real bummers, right? Because
Yeah.
this is a huge problem, climate change, right?
Yeah.
But but the way we build and organize our homes and communities, that's changeable. And so, I think Elemental Reimagine Wildfire is unusual in this space because, I mean, we really, really, really can do this. And I believe we will change, the way we interact with fire. I believe we will change our communities and our homes because we have to. And I think it's going to happen kind of soon. And we basically show that path and how the science has sort of figured it all out.
Yeah. I hope so. I really do because it seems like every time I turn around, there's a fire going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and people used to think of it as a West Coast problem or a California problem. I
Yeah.
mean, right now, New York is blanketed in
Oh,
smoke.
uh,
I
yeah.
mean, there's fires. There's been 5,000-acre fires in North Carolina near the coast in April.
Even that huge fire in Australia. Do you remember that one? I mean,
Oh
that,
yeah, I mean that was crazy. And Australia is a lot like California, right? If there's going to be a fire somewhere, it's going to be in California or Australia. But I mean, dozens of homes burned down in London in a wildfire last year. Dreary, foggy London.
yeah, it's crazy. The documentary also explores the coexistence of wildfire, healthy forests, and communities. Can you discuss some of the innovative approaches and strategies showcased in the film that aim to strike this delicate balance?
Yeah. So, I think there's two things that we have to happen in order for us to sort of live and thrive in these landscapes that are going to have fire. First, we prepare our homes and our communities, right? So, we often think of the way that homes burn down. There's this 200-foot wall of fire that just envelops a house and it doesn't stand a chance and it burns down. And you'd have to have a tank, right, to a concrete ammo bunker to avoid that, right? But it turns out it's the little teeny things. It's these details, the embers that get thrown a mile or more in front of the fire front. They find a little spot. They either get into your house through vents or a broken window or an open window or a dog door, and
Yeah,
they burn your home from the inside out, right? So
yeah,
it's kind of these not very sexy details, right, that protect your home. And then, it's little things like moving your garden beds 5 feet away from your house, switching the relationship between your walkway and your garden beds so you have this uncombustible 5-foot perimeter. You got 5 feet of non-combustible fence on either side of your house, so a wood fence doesn't wick fire from one house to the next, right?
right.
It's things like that. Plus, where appropriate and close to communities, we can learn from the UROC and do more of this prescribed burning, right? Fire, as Tim Inglesby says in the film, fire is the only thing that stops these big, massive fires that run during extreme fire weather, right? So if we can get in there and we can do some burning, some prescribed burning near communities, near the things we want to protect, then that combo is just going to be, it's going to allow us so much more time when
Y-
these emergencies happen.
Yeah, very good. Given the increase in deadly fires across several states, the topic of reimagining our relationship with wildfire has become more critical than ever. What do you hope viewers will take away from the film, and how can we begin to coexist with extreme wildfires?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is such an important moment, I think, to
Right.
watch this film, right? Because we've got California, we've got, four of the largest insurance companies just leaving the state because of wildfire, right? And we've been putting California, the United States, federal government, we've been putting so much money into honestly just the wrong things. We've been putting money into
Great.
um, managing the forest rather than preparing our homes, right? And the insurance companies, they don't care about us managing the forest. They
Yeah.
care about us doing things that keep our homes standing, right? And so, I mean, it's not only an issue of my family, is my home prepared? Is my home going to burn down? It's an issue of, is my neighbor doing the same things that I'm doing to prepare their homes, my whole neighborhood, my whole community. Because those community, and once we get our communities prepared, right? Once we do the things that are in the film, that there's new programs from the insurance industry that sort of say what to do, right? Once we do those things, I, I think we're gonna be able to redefine our relationship with fire, and part of that is gonna come from the insurance companies continuing to insure those homes, right? Because
Right.
we're at a point where the American middle class is at risk even more than it was, right? Then if we lose the value of our homes because we can't insure them, I mean, we are talking about a much greater problem, global financial crisis level problem,
Yeah.
uh, you know, experienced far from even fireplaces. So how do we do that? We prepare our homes, we prepare our communities, we retrofit all of the homes, and we work with people like the Yurok who are doing amazing um, burning in places to reduce fire risk.
Right, right. Now, the I did a lot of research because Annie sent me a lot of stuff, so I was like really into your filmmaking team. It really has received support, such as the National Geographic Society and others. How did did their support contribute to the production and distribution of the film, and what impact has it had on reaching a broader audience?
Yeah, I mean, National Geographic, we probably couldn't have made the film without their support. And in the end, in context, it wasn't like they gave us all of the money we needed to make the film at all. But I'd worked with National Geographic for a decade, and done like maybe 6 shows for them and gotten a bunch of grants to do expeditions all over the world.
Excellent. Yeah.
And this is actually, interestingly, the first specific storytelling grant that I've gotten from, kind of a newer program at the time, from National Geographic. But they gave us the seed funding. They gave us the first grant towards producing this film. And man, it helps when your first funder is National Geographic. I mean, people take you a lot more seriously.
I
Um,
actually worked with them before.
oh,
I
cool.
oh, yeah. So, they're great, great people to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, so much of my career um, would not have been a career without National Geographic. I got a great sort of break early on when I was like 25 years old, and have been working with them, intermittently ever since. But yeah, I mean, and then we got a nice grant from Patagonia, which of course is another name that helps bring on more folks. And having that up front to be able to raise the money to produce the rest of the film. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is you got to finish the film and then you've got to get people to see it. And in this market, I mean, it's not the way that it used to be. You can't just sort of say, okay, I made the film, everybody watch it. So you really have to spend a lot of time and energy afterwards making sure you can get some eyeballs on it. So yeah, all of that has been extremely helpful.
Well, just to give you a heads up, I got a note sent to me that Dick Wolf is coming out with a show, uh, a real life, like a realism documentary television show based on the Los Angeles firefighters called LA Fire and Rescue.
Oh, cool.
And I don't know, maybe it's something that maybe you should alert NBC or about your film because
Yeah,
you have LA in the film themselves, so
yeah, it's so hard to get that kind of permission to do like deep sort of
right.
filming firefighters. So that's awesome. And
Yeah.
yeah, and we interestingly, like you talked about, we were talking about National Geographic, and most of the organizations that we talked to said, hey, look, we've tried firefighting films and it's not working for us. And that was never what we set out to produce, right? This is clearly, it's not a firefighting drama, although that's a great, I mean, I will watch that show you just recommended,
Yeah.
because I love it, that kind of content. But yeah, it was interesting. People were really reluctant, when they thought, oh, it's a firefighter film, that's not for us, or whatever. So I'm excited to see it because I think when you do it right, gosh, it works really well. So we'll see.
Yeah, as a director, you have a very impressive portfolio of
Thank you.
award-winning films that have been screened all around the world. So I congratulate you with that. Has your background and experience in filmmaking influenced your approach to this film?
Yeah, it was interesting because I, the the thing that I wanted to do, and the thing that my instinct about filmmaking always says is like, you find a central character and you sort of follow them through their trials and tribulations, and if you're trying to communicate some science and that sort of thing, then like those are coattails that hang on the central character's story. And for this, um, there are great characters, and I'm just so grateful for their involvement in the film. But I didn't feel like there was one central character. There was so much that's so um, nuanced and often contradictory on the surface when it comes to fire. And researchers are really kind of in their silos. So I chose not to go with a central character, to follow throughout the entire piece, because what I really wanted to set out to do was say, viewer, I believe if you watch this, you will have a holistic understanding of fire right now, right? In terms of the science, in terms of the climate, in terms of, the policy, or at least, how the policy is playing out. And so yeah, we went a little bit against my own sort of instincts in a way, which to make a kind of a little bit more of a classic issue film.
Right.
Um, but it was, we've ruffled some feathers with it, because we didn't choose sort of one person in one central narrative. We pulled a lot of um, things together and found those threads that are very universal within the fire world and the fire community, and I
Right.
think understanding of fire. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad that we've ruffled some feathers. I'm glad that we've, sort of shaken some people and some things up, because I think that's what we need right now.
Hey, that's
So
what film does. That's what your job actually is to do. Uh,
absolutely. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
tell a story. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. Tell the story as we see it. And I think it's really, the people, especially, Dr. Jack Cohen, right? he is the originator of so much of the way that we think about fire today, but such an unsung hero. And he's just really, gotten very on board with helping us distribute the film, and really, I think his his engagement after we produced it, after we've, been screening it and going to streaming, the fact that he's so excited and into the film is like one of the biggest successes, I think, for me. Because I mean, this guy worked for the Forest Service, the fire lab in Missoula for 30 years. He
Wow.
did research all over he built houses and burned them down in labs. He burned down acres of forest to figure out how it played out with homes nearby. And he, he's just really widely respected in the fire services as well. So to have him, when people do uh, get upset with us for the film, because we are saying, hey, what we're doing right now isn't working and it's wrong and we need to change. You're gonna make some people unhappy because some
Right.
people spent their careers doing this. The amount that Jack Cohen comes to our defense and says, "No, this is how we've got to do this, guys." That's pretty awesome. It's very gratifying for me.
Actually, that comes to my next question because your film has been accepted in many, many festivals across multiple continents and has generated a lot of significant interest. What has been the audience's response to the film so far, and how has it influenced discussions surrounding the wildfire management and community safety?
Well, it's so interesting because at film festivals in 2022,
Right.
the questions and screenings, the questions were really quite often about insurance. People in fire-prone areas were already feeling this pressure and this worry, this anxiety over, are we going to be able to get insurance, right? And it it sort of seems trivial if you're not in it, right? Like, oh, maybe your insurance will go up a bit. But as I said, like that is, I mean, there there will be so much wealth lost if we suddenly can't insure homes. I mean, we are talking about the continued gutting of the American middle class if that happens, right? And so people were understandably worried about insurance. And now, I mean, we haven't even fully released the film until next week, and that issue has come to such a head, right? I mean, people are just being dropped from their insurance. Insurance companies are leaving California. And so the the questions have shifted, right? They've really shifted to like, I have this anxiety about insurance to like, okay, what are the brass tacks on the ground? How do we do this? How do we get this stuff done? Which is a pretty exciting, I think, shift. Now it's a devastating reason for it, right? But everything about this film was going to be devastating if we don't make the change from the beginning. So we were sort of like prepared for the devastation, and like, let's step into this very stressful, scary moment with knowledge of how to move forward. And it does feel like, I mean, it feels like audiences have almost come along on that journey with us, and that's really cool.
Yeah. What looking ahead, what are the hopes for the future impact of this film? And do you have any upcoming projects or initiatives that continue to explore the themes touched upon in the documentary?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I definitely do have upcoming work, and I'll talk about that. But I think what I really want to see from this film is I want to see people in fire-prone areas feel that they have an option, not just be fearful, but turn that fear into action, right? Because I think that for generations we've said, oh, we just wait for the firefighters, right? And now we have the science, we know how to prepare our homes, we know how to prepare our communities. And if we get our whole neighborhood, our whole communities to do it, we can live in these fire-prone landscapes safely, right? So I want individuals to start doing the weekend projects. I want the government to start subsidizing and helping people do it, just like we do with energy efficiency, all
Right.
sorts of code work, right? Um, I want there to be a carrot and a stick, right? The carrot needs to be like, you get these tax incentives, you get the support to do this work because we all see that it's cheaper and less lives are lost if we do it up front before the disaster, right? So I want that. I want that recognition from the public and the government. And in terms of future projects, I mean, I produced this show for PBS called Weathered, and you know, we look at extreme weather, climate, how it's changing, and how to prepare. So very similar stuff, multi-threat. You know, we're not just looking at fire; we're looking at hurricanes and heat waves and all the rest, and how, you know, some sort of like larger level conceptual stuff of how is this all happening? How can I understand the changes that I'm seeing around me? But we're reporting, we're working on, you know, we're working on reporting on an episode on the insurance industry issues right now,
Oh
and
yeah.
so I've just been very deep in that, and I'm grateful to be able to continue that work because I think it's really important. So, still creating stuff that sort of supports the film, and that PBS work is turning into a much larger series. We're going to be in the Arctic this summer. We're going to be
Wow.
um, sort of storm chasing a bit with fires and heat waves and hurricanes and tornadoes. So yeah, that comes out next year on Earth Day. But this film, I mean, I'm so excited that it's finally
You
going to
should.
be streaming
I lo-
on.
love the film. I thought it was
Thank you.
excellent. Well done too. You
Thank
know,
you.
this is the last question. Um, fine. What's your advice would be to give to aspiring filmmakers who are passionate about addressing pressing environmental issues through their work? Because you know how difficult it could be, you know, because you know, a lot of people they get turned off, but a lot of people want to hear this stuff, you know. Like myself, I'm a sustainable guy. I've been doing energy conservation. I was an aerospace engineer and energy consultant for many, many years
That's
in
cool.
the 90s, and I fell into the entertainment business because my friend's a top filmmaker and stuff like that. And I took the whole concept of sustainability into the film industry, you know, and I do talks all over the United States about it, you know, in schools. So what's your opinion on actually doing a film like yourself and getting it done to, you know, to the audience so people could learn what's happening, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, you know, there's two things for me. Uh, Becoming like a subject matter expert, or just, I guess, focusing on a type of filmmaking and just doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. And I think staying focused, uh, you know, is one of the keys to success in this industry, right? Um, I think it's certainly it's possible, you know, to dabble here and dabble there or whatever. But for me, especially, you know, with National Geographic was kind of my first like in large in big break, you know. And that happened because I was really focused on a specific niche that they were excited about, right? I was doing whitewater kayaking expeditions, rivers that no one had ever paddled before, or explored before, in delicate landscapes that were threatened, and trying to tell that story, right? It's a cool sort of niche combination of things. And they said, hey, we can work with this. Let's do it. You know, so I think that's just an example of like find something you're passionate about and do it better than anybody else. That's like the personal career advice, but I think that the how do we communicate about stories? How do we communicate stories and create stories that help change the world and for the better, socially, environmentally positive work like this? I mean, I think that you know, capturing the beauty and the destruction visually is important. But I also think, you know, what are the narratives that drive our decision making? And do they reflect science? Do they reflect truth? Do they make sense? And then, you know, for me, it's really fascinating to sort of take those narratives, break them down, and say, okay, if they're not true, but they're pervasive, like how do we challenge this narrative with a
Right.
new story? Like, how do we retell stories that that help us get where we want to go? Because so many of our narratives do take us backwards, right? And so I think it's finding those messengers, finding the right people that challenge the narratives that take us in the wrong direction. It's finding Margot Robbins and Rick O'Rourke from the Yurok tribe who just embody this different relationship with wildfire, for example, and it's letting their voices be heard in a way that they feel good about.
Right. A lot of people that I speak to always tell me that, when it comes to climate change or fire or something like that, is a left thing. And I always tell people, let me tell you something. When it comes to fire, it's not a left or right. It's deadly, and it's not prejudice, racist. It will kill you.
Yeah,
In
fire does not care what you look like.
Right. I learned from a top engineer a long time ago where this young man got on a ladder and he forgot to tag the switch, and he went and he was working on his ladder and he hit the voltage. He got electrocuted and died. And I never forget what he said. You have to respect electricity. It will kill you. And I think what that taught me was that's exactly what you have to do. You have to respect fire. It will kill you. Electricity will kill you. You have to really get into the whole safety aspect. And your film is unbelievable, and it was just totally amazing to me. And I hope that everybody gets the same feeling that I did. Congratulations, and it's global on TV on demand and digital on platforms and DVD, released on June 13th, correct?
That's right. Yeah. Apple and Amazon all over the world, other platforms as well. And
Yeah.
and on our website, elementalfilm.com, you can get the DVD, you can link to all the streaming platforms. So that's a great place to start.
Excellent. Well, I thank you, filmmaker Trip Jennings, for sharing your beautiful insights and experience with us today. Your film is a testament of your dedication and talent as a filmmaker, and we look forward to following your future endeavors. God bless, my friend.
Thanks so much. This has been a lovely conversation. Appreciate it.
And tell Ralph the Blomers, right? Ralph Blomers.
Yeah.
Tell him that he did an excellent job in producing this film.
Yeah, no doubt.
Too. God bless him too.
Hi, David Oyelowo here. I just wanted to say a few words about why I wanted to do the documentary Elemental and how inspiring I have found it. I live in Los Angeles. As we know, California is severely affected and increasingly so by these fires. I did not realize how much homes can be saved by hardening one's home. I'm in the process of doing that myself. I didn't realize how embers are almost more dangerous than the fires themselves, and how they can get into air vents, and how we basically have tinder around our homes through these decorative planting and wood chip we have. Things I very much still have in my home and I'm addressing right now. So it was a huge honor and a pleasure to do this documentary. I think it's not only informational, I think it's life-saving. So I hope you enjoy Elemental, and I hope it will inspire you to take some of the steps advised and some of the steps that I am taking myself.